world is collapsing, but the loving promises of God remain sure. Somebody has to talk about it. For the best in Christian talk, you are listening to Ari Gold.
Hi, I'm Ari Gold, and thank you so much for being with us today. Today, we're going to talk about the noise of race. The noise of race. But before we do, we're going to go to our verse for the day, coming from the book of Joshua. We're going to go to Joshua chapter 7, and we're going to read from verses 20 through 22. And the three companies blew the trumpets and brake the pitchers and held the lamps in their left hands and the trumpets in their right hands to blow withal. And they cried, the sword of the Lord and of Gideon. And they stood every man in his place round about the camp. And all the host ran and cried and fled. And the 300 blew the trumpets, and the Lord set every man's sword against his fellow, even throughout all the host. And the host fled to Bethshittah in Zererath, and to the border of Abiel Meholah, unto Tabbath. May God add a blessing to the reading of his word. Now, the reason that we call it the noise of race, let me just, going back to our background today, what's going on. We have the Sterling comments that came out, the owner of the Los Angeles Clippers, racist, bigot comments that came out on his feelings towards black employees that he has, and comments he made to his girlfriend, who recorded him secretly and released the audio. And it's caused quite an uproar. We've got former basketball legends chiming in on it. You know, all the talking heads are talking about it. We're going to make this video is going to be rather short and to the point. There's a lot to be said on it, but I want to just get to the heart of it. That what he said was wrong. It's indefensible. We should not feel that way toward any human being in the ways that he expressed himself. You can go for yourself and listen to the comments. But my issue with the whole thing lies that our house, our collective house, which transverses across all racial lines, is burning down. Just like in the literal house fire, I've got to go through my list of progressions. The top of which, and probably the only priority I have, is to get my family out, to get them out safe. If possible, after that, maybe if it's not spread too far at that point, maybe go in with a fire extinguisher and put it out. But my priority is to save my family. And using that analogy, we have to look at the current crises that we're going through. What's the most important thing? Not what's being projected on us. See, the people who lord over us, who run our lives, they're projecting through their various talking heads in the media what's important right now. It's racism, those racist comments by Sterling. When in reality, Sterling's comments don't affect me one bit. They just sound horrible. But see, what really threatens me, though, I find, are government-sanctioned programs, government-sanctioned initiatives that affect my food, water, through nonprofit organizations that don't pay taxes, but their sole objective is to destabilize the family and to promote anything and everything that's ungodly, to promote death in the form of abortion, death panels, what have you, whatever it may be. See, I'm going through my list of progressions, and my priority is I need to live in a healthy and a safe environment, not one constantly being, not one that's constantly has war being thrust in my face against Syria. Now we have the situation with Poland, with Russia. Military action is always urged from our country to do this and to do that. See, these are the threats that I face. My threats are are coming from young people who through a violent culture now embrace the knockout game and are sticking people up on the street, knocking off stores and robberies and things like that. We live in a very violent country. See, that's where my concern really lies, because that actually affects me. But see, we won't talk about that because that's a problem that we've all invested in, and if not by default pushing away from it, we've invested in it, and we're all part of it, and that's something we really should do something about. We can't really do anything about somebody that doesn't like someone else or another group. And by extension, when we look at the issue of race, we have to say, when we talk about racism, is it really racism, or in most cases or many cases, is it just bigotry? In other words, I just don't like that person. Whether it's a race, or I don't like the shape of their head, or I don't like this about them or that. Because in many cases, it's not really hatred towards a racial group. It's just people are bigoted. And if it is racism, so what? There's always been racism. Go back to Peter in the book of Acts chapter 10, when he was having a siesta and the Lord gave him a vision, and he saw the sheet coming down from heaven, and it had all the various unclean animals that the Jews were forbidden to eat. And the Lord told him, he said, just take and eat. And he said, Lord, not so. He mentioned that what he saw was unclean. He wasn't going to partake in it. But God said, what I've cleansed, don't you call unclean. And God turned his thinking around through that experience. And see, we're all trying to get through the big city of life. And there's some folks that got hang-ups with race or other issues. And what the establishment's trying to do is they're trying to use these hang-ups that some people have, and they blow it up so that we look at what they're trying to project on us instead of looking where we really need to look, such as why the middle class is disappearing. Black, white, Latino, Asian, literally, right in front of our faces, the middle class is disappearing. Why gasoline prices have been so high for so long? Why our national debt is so high with no end in sight? Why, as Michael Savage says, why our borders, language, and culture is being changed by an influx of illegals in this country to overrun us, to create a reset condition where the old culture, the old way of life is changing now, and we're all one big mixed pot being forced to change. Not that change isn't good, but certainly it's not good to just overrun a country, because you know they're not going to do the same thing down in Mexico. And I'm not against immigration. I am saying that with all of these things that are going on, it's all designed to cause a distraction. That's why we use the verse here from Judges, where Gideon went out to fight a battle. He only had 300 men. He was going against thousands. So what they did was they went up at night. They had their lanterns hidden in pitchers so that the lights couldn't be seen. They had their horns, and they went and they surrounded them. And on cue, they break their pitchers and they yelled, "The sword of the Lord and of Gideon." And with the lights that suddenly appeared and the noise, and it caused confusion where his enemies started to kill themselves. And that's what we're seeing happening to us. We're killing ourselves. It's the noise of racism. Somebody doesn't like us because we're black, or we're white, or whatever we may be, get over it. Because you have subsets within those groups, which, such as in black, in the black race, where, you know, if you're lighter than darker colored black person, you may feel as though you're superior, or vice versa. Or you have what they call good hair versus more traditional hair that's not as smooth. And same thing with whites, and same thing within religions, and you know, it's all about divide and conquer. That's what this whole thing is all about. So we need to wake up and prioritize what's really important. They're projecting this great big issue of race right now, instead of emphasizing the real issues that they are manipulating behind the scenes and want to keep that in the dark. Instead, they want to illuminate what some 80-year-old man has said about his millionaire black employees. So what? Their paychecks didn't stop coming. They're going to still continue to be paid. And his comments again were bad. They shouldn't be said, but I think we're all guilty of bigotry. Growing up in the inner city, it was nothing to see black Americans going into Korean establishments and giving them a hard time because they were Korean, or whites who maybe wandered into the inner city of Camden, and it was just a few of them, and they were picked on because they were white by the local black and Latino population. Wrong is wrong. At the end of the day, you catch a bullet, you catch a bat, you catch a fist, whether it's black or white, doesn't matter. You still feel the end result of that hate. So let's stop focusing in on just race hate, because right now we have human hate. We have people who, because of social engineering and sin, people are just lashing out as a whole, because people are really confused about everything. Everything's being turned upside down. They didn't have any teaching. There was no, in many cases, mother or father. There was no structure. So what do you expect is going to happen? So that's all I have to say on that topic, but that's a topic that deserves to be revisited again, and we will sometime very soon. Thank you again for being with us. And I do have a quote for you for today. It's going to come from an African proverb: when elephants fight, the grass gets hurt. And that's what we're seeing take place today. Thank you again for being with us.
Thank you for listening.